Tomorrow is once again a payday in name only for 800,000 Americans who work for the federal government. Tonight, President Trump was asked about it.
What's your message to federal workers who are missing another paycheck this week?
I love them. I respect them. I really appreciate the great job they're doing. Many of those people that are not getting paid are totally in favor of what we're doing.
Totally in favor of what we're doing. So saith the president. He spoke to reporters after payer bills to reopen the government failed in the Senate. Now, the Republican measure got fewer votes than the Democratic one. He talked about that and also about his decision to do what House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wanted him to do, which is postpone the State of the Union message. We begin, though, as we did last night and as we'll keep on doing, by bringing you the State of the Union as seen by our fellow Americans. We'll bring you that and the let them eat wall message they're getting from the president and members of his administration. Message one from the Commerce Secretary: you're nobody.
Put it in perspective. You're talking about 800,000 workers, and while I feel sorry for the individuals that have hardship cases, 800,000 workers, if they never got their pay, which is not the case, they will eventually get it. But if they never got it, you're talking about 0.33% on our GDP. So it's not like it's a gigantic number overall.
Not like it's a gigantic number overall. This message came to you from Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, who'd made a custom pair of velvet slippers with the seal of the Commerce Department on them. I'm not kidding. It actually happened. I don't even think Mr. Burns on The Simpsons wears slippers like that. So that's the message from Wilbur Ross, who's worth an estimated $700 million. To him, 800,000 unpaid public servants are essentially a rounding error. Keep him honest, perhaps the secretary should tell that to Atlanta TSA officer Ollie Morganfield. Reporter Chris James got to know him recently and spoke with him the day he went to apply for food stamps.
I work at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Been there for 16 years with TSA. I like the job and I like what I'm doing, but I'm worried about being paid. I'm worried about if I can get through this.
So how are you feeling that this is the first time you're going to get food stamps, yet you technically still have a job?
Yes, that is the funny part. Oh, I'm just hoping I can get some stamps. You gotta laugh about it because it's funny. You never see yourself doing this.
What's your biggest fear right now?
My apartment. Will I be here? And will I be embarrassed when they evict me? Because if this thing goes any longer, then the 17th to 3 weeks, and if it goes into the 4th week, I don't have no money.
Will he be embarrassed, he wonders, when they evict me? This is a man who's still going to work every day. Would you? Could you? With the bills coming in? I mean, it's all a bit puzzling to Secretary Ross, who wonders why people earning $0 are having such a tough time of it.
Mr. Secretary, there are reports that there are some federal workers who are going to homeless shelters to get food.
Well, I know they are, and I don't really quite understand why, because as I mentioned before, the obligations that they would undertake, say a borrowing from a bank or a credit union, are in effect federally guaranteed. So the 30 days of pay that some people will be out, there's no real reason why they shouldn't be able to get a loan against it.
That's the Commerce Secretary. Just to make it clear, you're working, I'm not paying you, and there's no telling when I will, so you should go to a bank or a credit union and persuade them to lend you money, and then you should pay interest on that money. Unless, of course, you're a contractor and you're not going to get paid back for lost time. Oh, and by the way, Secretary Ross's department, they have a credit union which is offering emergency loans up to $5,000 at the undiscounted rate of nearly 9%. He later clarified how much he cares by telling Bloomberg News, and I quote, "We're aware, painfully aware, that there are hardships inflicted on the individual workers." Now, according to the TSA, salary for screeners can range from $23,000 to $35,000, which means that at $700 million net worth, Wilbur Ross has enough money to live on a screener's top salary for about 20,000 years. And what if government workers can't get a loan or are already living on the edge, as many are? What happens when the bills come due? Well, President Trump had an answer for that today.
Mr. President, did you see Wilbur Ross said that he doesn't understand why federal workers would need help getting food? Can you understand?
No, I haven't heard the statement, but I do understand. Perhaps he should have said it differently. Local people know who they are when they go for groceries and everything else. And I think what Wilbur was probably trying to say is that they will work along. I know banks are working along. If you have mortgages, the mortgagees, the folks collecting the interest and all of those things, they work along. And that's what happens in time like this. They know the people, they've been dealing with them for years, and they work along. The grocery store, and I think that's probably what Wilbur Ross meant.
Wilbur Ross was watching the Andy Griffith show, and Barney Fife didn't have work, and he went to the grocery store, and everybody knows Barney Fife, and they all know him at the local bank, so of course they gave him a mortgage, they gave him a loan, they gave him free grocery stores. That's what happens. It's kind of like a friendly landlord the president has talked about on other occasions, always ready to give you more time to pay, just like he always did when he was a landlord. Perhaps you should tell that to Ollie Morganfield, who's still going to work, is still not getting paid, and still forced to worry as he keeps us all safe, how it might feel when he gets evicted. More now on all of this and what the president is doing about it or not doing about it. We've seen as Caitlin Collins, who joins us now from the White House. So you've got some new reporting on the likelihood of the president declaring a national emergency. What is the latest?
Yeah, Anderson, CNN has exclusively obtained this document that shows the White House has prepared a draft for the president to declare a national emergency to build his border wall and to fund it if Congress doesn't give him the funding. Now, White House officials say that this is still an option for them, but right now it's not their top option. But clearly, Anderson, the fact that this draft exists and has been edited as recently in recent days shows that White House officials still think it's a real possibility that the president could bypass Congress and use this national emergency to build his border wall. And the president alluded to that today when reporters were in the room with him when he was asked about Wilbur Ross's comments. He also said that if this doesn't work out with Democrats, that he will pursue other options to build his border wall.
It is amazing to me that the president never hears negative comments that his own people are making that are widely covered. But he seems to hear just about everything else that's going on in the universe on television. Do the president and his advisors seem concerned that 6 Republicans supported the Democrats' plan today in the Senate? And do they think their new prorated down payment proposal is actually viable?
Well, right now, in their eyes, it's at least a plan, which is some progress from where they've been in recent days. Now, they've come up with this idea to have the government open for 3 weeks and then have a prorated down payment for the president's border wall, which, if you're doing the math from that $5.7 billion that they've asked for, it would come out to roughly $330 million that they're asking for 3 weeks of opening the government. Now, Democrats have said that's a non-starter, and the White House seems to still think that they can get them to come over to their side, but that's an open question. The other question, Anderson, is the White House hasn't said how much of a down payment it is. That math, that $330 million, is math that we've done. The White House hasn't actually laid out any kind of a specific number, even though we've asked a slew of officials here at the White House. They still have not shed any more light on that. So we're still looking for some clarity on that. But in their eyes, at least there's some progress and some talks happening compared to no progress a few days ago.
I've talked to now two politicians today, none of whom could really explain to me what a prorated down payment actually means coming from this president. Does anyone in the White House exactly know specifically what that means?
The only things that they've really laid it out were those 2 statements, 2 from Sarah Sanders, one that said they wanted a down payment in exchange for opening the government for 3 weeks. And then she said later on they wanted a large down payment. Then we heard from the president, but it was really interesting, Anderson, if you listen to the president, because he didn't say, this is my suggestion. He said people are suggesting this as an idea. He didn't say that it's something he's behind. And of course, the White House has been the wild card in this entire month-long shutdown, because Republican lawmakers even say they don't know exactly what it is that the president would sign. So that's what they're looking for, more clarity on that. But right now, the White House seems to think a down payment on the down payment for the wall is their best bet.
That's the president's one of his go-to lines, which is people are talking about it. That's like a new offshoot of it. Oh, people are suggesting a prorated down payment. It's all you hear about when you're on the subway these days. People are talking about this. Anyway, Caitlin Collins, thank you very much.